Here's the deal. Buffett's cash pile is up to $168 billion. Now, experts are saying, he expects a recession, those sorts of things. The crazy thing is Warren Buffett's company boosted its cash pile by $60 billion in 15 months to a record $168 billion here, okay? Now, I got to be honest with you guys. I am wondering, maybe this is a little conspiracy theory, but do you guys remember what happened when they, the latest trades came out in regards to Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway? The news broke that Warren Buffett actually sold some Apple shares, which was shocking because that man has never even been interested in selling Apple shares. So the fact that he wanted to sell Apple shares was mind-blowing. It was like, wow, like why? And it's not like he's short on cash. The man's got cash to the sky. We know this. So in order to sell Apple stock didn't make any sense. Unless you think the stock's overvalued or its best days are behind it or you have somewhere better to put the money, but they got so much money at Berkshire. So it doesn't make sense unless you really are losing confidence in the business or there's an overvaluation there that you're like, I think this company is very overvalued. There's something going on there because there's no reason for Buffett to build even more cash. But I got to wonder, is Buffett potentially selling more Apple stock? Because things are not adding up here, guys. Apple's down year to date. Down. Now, keep in mind, they did beat their last quarter numbers. Also keep in mind, we know Apple's always buying back tons of stock, right? So to push Apple down, while the Qs are up about 8% so far this year, Amazon stock's up 15%, one of its peers. Meta stock's up about 40% this year, and Nvidia stock's up 61%. So its friends are having the biggest party, right? The NASDAQ in general is having the biggest party, and Apple's not participating at all. And it makes you have to say, what is going on here? Is it possible that Buffett's potentially dumping shares? Because why can this stock not do anything right now? Because Apple's out there buying shares. They're always buying shares. Every quarter they're just loading up on shares. And that's one of the things that helps push Apple stock price up over time is the fact that Apple's always out there buying. So very suspicious. That's the way I'll describe it. Very suspicious that Apple stock is not doing anything. Maybe it's something government related. Maybe Buffett knows something about the DOJ and potentially Google not being able to be the default search engine on Apple, and then Apple, potentially making, I've seen estimates of $10 to $20 billion less in profits per year from that Google situation, right? I don't know. There's something fishy going on, I can tell you that much though, okay? Now, if we look at Buffett's cash pile over the years, right? Back in from 2012 to 2013, the cash pile actually shrunk. Then from 2013 to 2014, the cash pile grew. 2014 to 2015, cash pile grew again, but not as as nearly as significant of a number on a real basis, but also on a percent basis, right? Much bigger percent basis and overall total sum number here of 14 billion. Then Buffett shrank his cash level here, right? And he was definitely out there buying. Then from about, let's call it December 2016, so going into 2017 through 2019, the man grew the cash pile all the way from 86 billion to 128 billion. So that really, in my opinion, started the big kind of Buffett being careful run, right? That has lasted years. And then he went ahead and added more to that cash levels. December 2020, up to 138 billion. Then 2021, up to $146 billion in cash and short-term investments. Then it shrunk right here. And we'll speak about why that shrunk right there. Went from 146 billion to 128. So a big decrease there, especially, Buffett and Berkshire is always throwing off huge profits. So that means they were definitely out there being aggressive. And then huge buildup in the cash now to 167 billion. And here's the deal: if Buffett's actually not really participating in this market, not buying stocks, and let's say there's a situation where he is selling more Apple shares, he's going to take this cash pile to over $200 billion this year. This year, over $200 billion, which is just it's a number you can't even really fathom, right? Now, if we pull up the last 5-year chart here, this is very self-explanatory, right? You guys know my saying. I always say, buy the dip and never trip, right? And it's always something I always remember, like, especially when you're in a bad market, a correction market, a crash market, buy the dip and never trip. Warren Buffett is the definition of buy the dip and never trip. So why did Buffett's cash balance go way down significantly in 2022? Well, what happened in 2022? Massive crash. The NASDAQ fell well over 35% peak to trough. The S&P 500 fell well over 20% peak to trough. You only, maybe once out of every 5 to 10 years, you get a NASDAQ down 30+% and a S&P 500 down 20+%. Maybe it happens one out of every 5 to 10 years. So when you get that opportunity, you've got to take advantage. And Warren Buffett certainly took advantage. Now, did Warren Buffett take advantage of the best stocks in that situation? No. He missed out on the ones that were hit the hardest, the Shopifys and the Netflix and the Metas and the Amazons and those sorts of stocks. So he did miss out. But with that being said, he still, I can tell you, if you bought almost anything in 2022, you're probably looking pretty flip and flapjack and good on those stocks now at this point in time, right? So the big Buffett, he buys a dip and he never trips. Now you got to ask yourself, here's the situation we're in right now. NASDAQ's around all-time highs. S&P 500's around all-time highs. The Dow, Jones Industrial Average, is around all-time highs. Bitcoin is near all-time highs right now. And NVIDIA is at all-time highs or near all-time highs. So you got to ask yourself, is the big Buffett, Big Daddy, is he going to be buying when everything's at all-time highs? Well, that's not his style. That's not his style at all. He likes to be buying heavy when we have a correction in the market or when we have a crash in the market. And that's when you see him deploy money aggressively out there, right? Which we're just not in that market right now. We're not. Not when you got all these asset classes near all-time highs. And I mean, you look at things like Bitcoin or NVIDIA, those are really proxies for risk taking. So when you see Bitcoin moving the way it's moving or NVIDIA stock, that means people are really in max level risk taking mode at that specific moment, right? And there can always be levels of how much higher you go from there. It could last another 3, 6, 12 months, right? Of more and more risk taken until it's like reached like a insane territory, which is like when you can officially get every single bear off the sideline. And even the most bears turn to kind of like bulls at that point in time. But for now, this isn't the type of market Buffett wants to buy into, right? Now, also, if we look at this, on top of this, and then I'll talk about a few stocks that I think Buffett should be buying right now, in my personal opinion. But here's the deal. Buffett looks at the S&P 500 P/E ratio, and he's not going to really want to buy right now. The P/E ratio on the S&P 500 right now is about 27. This is the past 20 years I pulled up here for you guys. Guess what? You know, we're about as high as we've ever been in terms of P/E ratio, other than coming off of the great financial crisis, right? And coming off the Rona crash. Outside of those two scenarios, we're about the highest we've ever been, which means, you know, it's not going to be the stocks are not going to be very attractively priced, especially the type of stocks Warren Buffett really likes, right? So that's, I think, huge. This is a very high P/E ratio right now. If the P/E ratio was 17, I would tell you Buffett would probably be buying a lot of stocks. At 27.5, he's just not going to be very enthusiastic because the deals in the market are not his type of, because think about where the deals are in the market. If you can find deals, they're likely tech related. Does Buffett buy tech? That's not his thing, right? The other deals you can find in the market are more like small cap stocks, right? More Russell 2000 related stocks that have maybe $500 million market caps, couple $1 billion market caps. Buffett's it's not even worth his time to buy a $1 billion market cap. If he was, he would just buy the whole entire company out. So those Russell 2000 small cap stocks that look as a pretty attractive opportunity to a lot of us that are smaller investors, to somebody like a Buffett, he can't even consider that. And then the tech stocks, he can't even consider those, right? So it's a tough situation for Buffett. Overall, I do believe whenever Buffett steps down from Berkshire, I do believe they're going to invest in maybe not necessarily smaller caps, but I do believe they'll invest in a lot more tech-related companies. Now, there's a few stocks I'm looking out there right now, and I'm like, Buffett should be buying these stocks, and should have been buying these stocks for a while. Meta, PayPal, Amazon. These are perfect stocks for him, but, he's always had trouble with Amazon in terms of the valuation there. It's always traded rich. It always will trade rich. It's got that sort of growth, right? PayPal, I could almost guarantee you, Warren Buffett's probably never used PayPal or Venmo in his life. But I think that's a really attractive stock for somebody like him that likes a very stable business at a very low P ratio. I mean, the forward P on PayPal is like 10 or 11 right now. that it's, good balance sheet on that company, stable business model overall, consistent growth over the years. That's such a Buffett stock. But if you never use the apps, which I guarantee you he probably has never used the apps, it's not a Buffett thing, right? Meta stock, perfect for Buffett. One of the best balance sheets in the world, such a stable business model, people that continue to use that product, no different than his Apple position, right? Super profitable, actually a fairly low PE considering the growth rates of that company, founder led by Zuckerberg there, but I don't know if Buffett really fully understands Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. So, unfortunately, those are the type of stocks that I'm like, man, those would be great for him to build big positions in over the next several years, but unfortunately, he probably just can't, get there when it comes to those sorts of stocks. And so we'll see whenever, he steps down someday. I wouldn't be surprised if they're adding to some of these sorts of companies, okay? Next one up here, Apple needs to do something big, and Rivian might be the answer. What?
Munster and Gerber, Kawasaki president and CEO Ross Gerber. Gene, you say you're surprised, but I wonder why. Whoever thought that an Apple car was a good idea in the first place?
Well, I think Apple thought it was a good idea, and I think that they've got a history of redefining, reimagining product categories that were getting off the ground. And so the amount that they're investing by my measure was about $1 billion per year, most of that coming over the past 3 or 4 years. And Tim Cook said famously in 2017 that autonomous vehicles are the mother of all AI projects. And so if you listened and watched what they were doing, they wanted to do this. This was a goal. And of course, they've now shifted direction. So that's what surprised me. I had put the odds at this at 50-50 that this would come out, 50% chance. I'm famously wrong for predicting Apple Television that got killed in 2017. And that 2017 episode reminded me, because Apple is working on something doesn't mean that it will see the light of day. And now we add the Apple Car to that.
So Apple, I think according to my math here, they were spending around $1 billion supposedly a year on this project. So based upon my math of kind of what Apple likely makes profit per phone, that would mean they likely need to sell 2 million to 3 million phones to pay for this project overall in regards to profits.
Too hard on yourself. Apple TV does exist, not the physical TV, but of course the box. So we'll give you a pass on that one, Gene. Ross, is this, listen, Apple could have probably owned Tesla 5 to 10 years ago. Maybe they still could take.
I'll tell you why Apple never made the TV, because Gene Munster for years he did think that Apple was going to make an actual TV, like 65, 75, 85 inch TV. Listen, here's the deal with Apple. Okay, Apple likes to make small products. This is their specialty. Those little iPhones and little iPads that can go in a little box, and distribution cost is extremely cheap, and you can ship them all over the place. It's a piece of cake. All of a sudden, if you're talking about selling 65, 75, 85 inch TVs, oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Oh my gosh, that is no fun. And that's a very, very low margin business, as we do know, the TV game, right? And so to then get people to try to pay up for that would be a big challenge. So I wouldn't be surprised if Apple had ambitions to do a big TV over time. The biggest product that Apple really likes to do is obviously their biggest lineup of Macs, right? But they can sell those at price points of several $1,000s because people can justify it in their heads in terms of what they're getting for a product like that. A TV, very hard to sell for several $1,000s. It just is. People have gotten very accustomed to $500 to $1,000 for a big screen TV that's connected and all those sorts of things.
That's at it. Who knows? What's your take?
Well, I was with Gene with the Apple TV, and I still can't believe they didn't release the TV, but I knew they were never going to do a car. Being an early Tesla investor and knowing their mode and knowing where they were at, and I had done many interviews back as far as 2015 talking about Apple taking a stake in Tesla. And when Tesla was in trouble in 2018 and needed money, supposedly there was a conversation between the two that Tim doesn't remember. But that lack of memory probably cost him hundreds of billions of dollars for Apple's shareholders if he would have taken a stake in Tesla at the time. And just the same, we see a similar opportunity for Apple if they want to be in this business by taking a stake in Rivian. But they don't want to be in this business, and they've made a clear commitment to Vision Pro, and moving this team over to AI is the smartest thing they can do. So this is a good move for Apple.
Do you think, and I'll go back.
Here's the thing, though. You can't just move teams like that and say, okay, you guys were working on a car, now go work on AI. You can do that, but it's just people have different skill sets and different talent levels. And some people are very good at this sort of engineering. Some people are much better at this and that. And so, I just think it's a false assumption to be able to assume somebody that's working over here can go, hey, go work on this. You can do that. It's just like, you're not going to get the best of the best to really do that.
Ross,
right?
We're going to just have a little fun. It's Tuesday, worst night of the week. Let's have some fun. Any chance Apple at 2.8 trillion in market cap could try to buy Tesla at 700 billion in market cap? Or is that completely insane?
That is insane.
Well, not with this FTC. I mean, this FTC won't even let two bad grocery stores merge, let alone something as dominant as that. So, we got to wait till something changes there. But in theory, I think the bigger issue is that Tim Cook and Elon Musk are like oil and water, and they would never work together ever.
That's okay? True. 100%.
Literally ever. So it would have to be one or the other in charge and the other not being involved if that was ever going to happen.
No, we know the federal government loves Elon Musk, so you never know, Ross. Maybe they could just take a pass. Please, it's too.
Who knows what Elon's going to do?
The show just started. It's too early for the sarcasm.
It's Tuesday.
Exactly. Gene Munster. Apple.
It's ridiculous. Here's the deal. Okay, would Elon Musk sell Tesla to Apple? The answer is absolutely not. Like, the thing is, Elon Musk believes Tesla could be the biggest company in the world, right? So for him to even sell it to anybody for any number just doesn't make sense. Even if he sold it at 1.2 trillion to Apple or whoever, it just doesn't make any logical sense. Like, no.
Cars are hard. I mean, phones, the thing with your eyeballs that they're doing now, okay, those are hard. Cars are a different animal. If you're an Apple shareholder, many of our viewers and listeners are, should they be happy about this news?
I think they should be disappointed. And part of it is that Apple's a tech company, and tech companies by definition need to grow. And that's the $400 billion question that they have. That's their revenue this year. And to grow a top line, they haven't grown their top line for the last 6 quarters. And to grow the business, you got to get into some big markets. Vision Pro has some potential, but was the kind of the shiny opportunity related to the car. This could, if they get 10% of the automotive market, that would grow their top line by 60%. We can set aside the earnings question, but I understand that most investors thought that this was a low probability, and that is reflected in how the stock traded today. But ultimately, I'm disappointed. I think Apple could have done something really special when it comes to automotive.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, Gene, but to the point I just made with Ross, the question rather.
The issue is Apple, outside of, what product has Apple come out with that's really a Tim Cook related product, right? And not Johnny Ive, Steve Jobs. The only product so far has been the Apple Vision Pro. Everything else was either worked on by Steve Jobs or Johnny Ive. And so, that's the trouble. You only got Vision Pro out there, and people are like, I don't even know if that's going to be a hit. Yeah, no, it looks like, if anything, it's definitely not a hit. And so that's tough.
There's a chance, so you're saying there's a chance, that Apple is abandoning its own effort because maybe it does want to take a pass. Maybe not at Tesla, which is massive, but maybe at a Rivian, maybe at a Lucid, right? Instead of build, just buy.
I think that makes sense. I think the Rivian piece that lines up. I think by my last check, it's $10-12 billion market cap, and definitely more doable. And I think it does line up. Apple could do this, and I think that would get them into that bigger market. So I'm disappointed that this turn in events, and so I don't want to be predicting that they're going to ultimately do something like this. But I do think Apple needs to break into some new market. And dare I say the television? It still surprises me that they didn't do it. I don't want to go back to that conversation, but they need to do something big, and potentially Rivian would be just the answer to that.
Yeah. Amazon's a huge shareholder. I'm not sure they would really allow that. Can't wait to hear Jamie Dimon on the U.S. economy. No. The bottom line is the Vision Pro has potential. The problem is they screwed the product up. It's not a good product go to market. I've watched the videos on it. It's not an Apple grade product go to market. It's not a product that the moment you see it, like, oh my gosh, it's a freaking game changer. I can't wait to get my hands on this, like the iPhone was, like the iPad. And, many of these other products, obviously, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive launched over time. If if Jobs and I've worked on that product, one, it would have been under $1,000 price point. Two, they wouldn't have had a flipping flapjack and battery pack you got to keep with it. That's just ridiculous. Three, the fit would have been way better. Like, it would have looked way cooler. Like, everything about that product would have been immensely better than what they put out there in the marketplace. I can tell you that much. It would have been a product that people would have seen and been like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get that, and I can't wait to buy it at that price point.